we have this Star Knowledge story called The Race Around the Hills. It explains what happened about, a long time ago there was only one continent, and humans appear in 5 areas, and basically, there's a combination of all kinds of things happening, and some people get along, some people don't, and those that do get along, and they realize a lot of things that they have in common. After a really, really long period of time, people are starting to separate into groups. Wherever they settle, they have to adapt to that environment. And in time, people start getting selfish and wanting more than others, and they start violating nature. They start developing things at the expense of violating nature, and the story says that this was a time period where people flew through the air. They traveled underground to faraway places at really fast speeds, and so it makes you wonder, what kind of technology did they have? And a lot of people, they want to think that, that for some reason people are under the impression that what we have today never got this far before, and lots of cultures will disagree with that. Yeah, a lot of cultures will say, no, that's not necessarily true. A lot of cultures, including Lakota culture, have these stories like the one I'm talking about here. It's interesting, to look at these stories and see, the kind of things that they said, and all the things that lead up to that, and what happens, and that the ones who survive are the ones that are still living this natural way of being in harmony with the earth by living with the earth, taking when we take food, whether it's animals or plants, we give something back, and we always have this respect, and that the earth gives us everything, and so just a handful of people were still living like that, and those are the ones that maintained that connection to their sacred center, and they were the only ones who heard the voice telling them where to go for safety. They heard Grandmother Earth telling them where their safety areas are, because it's different for every nation, because for some people, she's saying, it always depends on their location, what kind of environment, they have. Are they in the mountains? Are they where there's a lot of water? Are they in a desert? Things like this. Everybody is in a different location, so the safety places are going to be different too. So the stories are talking about, the people who didn't hear it, that they're destroyed along with the technology. If you have a technology that where the people can travel far places at great speeds, then you have to imagine all the other things that must have existed at that time too. So, that means, when groups are being apart from each other, they must have developed something to keep away from each other, or to make sure they stay away from each other. So you're going to have, all kinds of things can come to your mind. Maybe it's a belief system, maybe it's a political system, maybe it's whatever, that people use that to keep themselves in a group, and then to make sure that they don't get overthrown, because they want to keep what they have, they're going to develop something to do that, which is a military. Okay, so as the earth is telling everybody to go to safety, and like I said, only The only people who heard the voice were those that were living with the earth, that were living with, healthy, living healthy within themselves, in such a way that they're communicating from their sacred center, and they hear the voice telling them where to go. Those are the only ones that survive, as I said several times now. The ones that were not living this way were destroyed. This cleansing, this doesn't just, happen in a few hours and next day Earth is different. No, this happened over a long period of time. But the changes, the stories say that, the sun plays a role, the winds play a role, the mountains play a role, the water plays a role. All the four elements, they all play a role in this, and they're represented in beings like we, the sun, we, the moon, Wakia, the thunder being, who else here? Tate, Topa, Yumni, all these winds that are, make also tornadoes and hurricanes, and the earth itself, Unchimaka, with opening up the ground, the mountains moving, all these things. The lady who controls the water, Unk, is also playing a role. All of them work together to do this cleansing, and it's all based on, at the same time, they're doing it to restore balance, because there's something wrong everywhere. There's something wrong, so they have to live, to continue, for the earth to continue to be here. These things have to do their work to accomplish that, so the earth will still be here. Yeah, and that, like I said, that's going to include hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, and all kinds of stuff, and forest fires, and all kinds of things. And this is, and we already saw this starting to happen over 20, 30 years ago, and we didn't pay attention, or we denied it, that, it'll go away. Yeah, and it's starting to build up now, and the earth is doing things that people didn't see happen. The sea level is going to rise. Yeah, and look at where all these, where do all the military people place their strongest forces? It's near where the waters are. Yeah, and those places are rising, and so those bases that are there, they're going to have to be moved. But the problem is the politicians, they know that this is going to cost billions of dollars, and they don't want to spend that money. $100 billion to move one military base to higher ground. But even if they were to do that, an enemy could still get to where they used to be and stay there and sneak in and do damage. So you see, there's something to think about. Is some of these terrorist groups may actually be using the weather. They're not doing anything to the weather, but they know the weather is messing up the military bases, but they might actually use that to their advantage in coming in to countries. Think about that. That's kind of scary. This ISIS group could come into America because they already have sleeper cells in America. Yeah? They're in every country all over the world, and they're waking them up. Right now, they're too small, so they can only target certain things. But if the weather makes everyday life really, really difficult, they could actually use the weather to their advantage. That's really a scary thought. Yeah. Anyway,